Hi boys and girls, it's Miss Rossi. Today we're going to finish our cupcake pictures from last week. Last week we learned about a new artist named Wayne Thiebaud who painted all different kinds of pictures of desserts. Then we got to draw our own version of one of his pictures where we thought about repetition to create patterns. So when you repeat the same shape or design over and over again to create a pattern. We also talked about drawing objects using simple shapes. So we started out with simple shapes and added more details to create our own drawing of a cupcake. What we're going to do today is we're going to add color to our picture. So I have crayons and watercolor paints to add color today. I'm going to do a little bit of a crayon and watercolor resist. This means that wherever I put my crayons, my watercolors will not be able to go because our water will not be able to stick to the wax from the crayons. I'm going to use my crayons to color and to outline today and try and create a design that looks similar to one of our artist's paintings. If you don't have watercolors at home, you can do your whole picture using crayons, or you can use any other materials you have at home to color. To get started, I'm going to think about how I want to outline my picture. Now, our artist was known for outlining his designs and paintings using colors that you wouldn't normally see being used on these kinds of objects. So they didn't really look super realistic because maybe he was outlining a slice of pie with a bright blue or a bright green, and you wouldn't normally see that. So you can pick whatever colors you would like to do your outlining with. I'm going to use all different colors, and I'm going to trace around my pencil lines a few different times with a few different colors to make it look more interesting. Again, you can use whatever colors you would like. Yours doesn't have to look like mine. I'm going to start by just outlining and tracing over the top of all of my pencil lines for my cupcake only, and then when I'm done, I'll move on to the background. So with my crayons, I went in with a bunch of different colors and traced over my pencil lines. I even went in some spots with two colors where I traced over in pink first and then I went over in a blue. You can trace over your design in whatever colors you would like, and you can do it in whatever way you would like. If you want to layer multiple colors or just pick a bunch of different ones, that works too. Now I'm looking at my cupcake and I see I have some small details like these sprinkles and my cherry that I might not be able to get with my big paintbrush and my watercolor. So I think of all of my little details, I'm going to color in with my crayons. Now, like our artist did, when we're coloring with our crayons, we don't have to color in the shape the same color that we traced it. You can use a bunch of different colors and make a bright and colorful picture with your cupcake. As you're coloring in with your crayons today, you want to press hard so that your color shows up and there's not a lot of white space. That's going to help us when we start to add our watercolor. If your colors with your crayons aren't dark enough, then it might have trouble showing up through the watercolor paint that we're going to use. So you might want to trace over certain areas a couple times. You probably saw me do that in the other clip, but you just want to make sure all of your colors are nice and filled in and you can see them easily, so it'll be better once we start to paint. All right, I am done coloring in my sprinkles. I think I'm just going to color in that cherry, and then I will be ready to work on the background. When we're coloring our objects in, whether you're using your crayons to color in your small details, or if you don't have watercolor and you're going to use crayons for the entire thing, you can color in each section to look realistic. So even though we traced it with a bunch of different bright colors, you can color in your frosting or your sprinkles to look like real sprinkles and real frosting if you'd like, or you can pick other bright colors and make a bright and fun, colorful picture. It's totally up to you. Now that I finished tracing and filling in my smaller details on my cupcake, I'm going to go in and trace the background. I'm going to do the same thing for the background, where I'm just going to trace on top of my pencil lines with my crayon. If you have small details that make up your pattern, you might want to trace those and color them in like we colored in our tiny details on our cupcake. My circles I should be able to get with my paintbrush and my watercolor, so I think I'm just going to trace everything in a bunch of different colors, and then I'll be ready to paint. And that is my background all finished being traced. So again, I used a bunch of different colors, tracing over my lines, repeating those colors and those lines and those shapes to create a more interesting looking design. So I went over those same lines with a couple different colors, and I was able to create a very interesting looking background pattern. Now that I finished tracing all of my pencil lines, we can start to paint. So I'm going to grab my watercolors. You can decide if you want your picture to look more realistic and use colors that would remind you of your favorite frosting flavor, your favorite cupcake flavor, or you can pick any of your colors from your color palette and create a bright and colorful photo. It's totally up to you. I think I'm going to use a mix of realistic colors and some other colors that are just bright and fun. So I'm starting by wetting my watercolors. I'm swirling my paintbrush around in my water. I'm wiping it off on the edge of my cup so I don't drip it all over the table. And then I'm swirling carefully in my watercolor paint. Now I can go in and paint on my cupcake. I want to make my fudge section brown. So I have this brown color on my paintbrush, and I'm just going to carefully go in and fill in that shape. And since we used our crayon to outline, our watercolor will not go outside of the shape that you're painting in. As long as you colored your crayon dark enough, it will stay inside that shape and your colors won't blend together and start to get muddy on your paper. I'm going nice and slowly with my paintbrush, filling in that space. I'm trying not to leave any white spaces. I want it to be fully colored in. There we go. Now that I want to go into a new color, I can swirl my paintbrush around in my water, wipe it off, and then pick my next color. I'm going to make some pink frosting, so it's like strawberry frosting on top of my cupcake. So I am wetting that paint so I can get enough on my brush, swirling nice and gently, and I can just go in and paint right over those sprinkles I drew, because that crayon will show right through our watercolor paint since it is resisting it. It is preventing the watercolor from going in that space. It will not let the watercolor cover it. If you need more paint, you can always wet your brush again, wipe it off on the edge of your cup, and dip back into whatever color you are using. Now I'm carefully going to fill in this last section around my fudge with my pink watercolor paint. And if you do make a mistake, or if your watercolors do start to blend together, that is okay. That's one of the fun parts about using paints and watercolors, is that your colors do get to mix together and you get to create new colors. I'm going to clean off my brush, and I'm going to use this lighter brown because I'm imagining like a vanilla-like cake. So this golden color I think will be good to fill in this space where you can still see the cake part right on top of that wrapper. And now I can paint in that wrapper. You can use whatever color you would like. I think I'm going to use some purple. So I clean my brush. Now I'm swirling it in my purple paint. And I can paint right on top of my crayon designs. And you can see those green lines I drew shining right through my dark purple watercolor paint, because our crayon is resisting our watercolor. It does not want the watercolor to cover over it. Now that I finished coloring in my cupcake, I can move on to the background. So I'm going to wash my brush, and I'm going to decide what colors I would like to use in the background. I think inside my little orange circles, I'm going to do some blue. All right, I'm gonna let those blue dots dry for a second and move down onto the bottom. And I think I'm just going to pick one color to fill in my bottom section. I think I'm going to use this bright orangish red that I have. So I added some water in there, and now I can paint right on top of my crayon lines. And I can still see even those lighter colors like the yellow that I used and that light green are still shining through even though I'm painting on top of them. And finally, I can wash off my brush and go back up to the top. Now I think I want to create another pattern. So in some of my sections in the background, I'm going to do a yellow, and then in the other sections, I will do green. Now since I have that blue watercolor paint inside those dots, I want to be careful and go around them instead of painting right over them, because they will start to mix together if I get my yellow watercolor inside those dots. But I can paint right over those zigzag lines that I drew with my crayon. And I think I'm also going to use green, because I haven't used green yet. And since I wanted to create a pattern, I'm going to repeat these colors over again. So I'm going to go back in that yellow for the next section. Then the next one will be green, and then yellow, and then green, over and over again, alternating back and forth. Alright, that is my painting all finished. I made sure I filled in all of the white space. I used my crayons to create bright outlines, and then I even used my watercolor to fill in my painting and create even more patterns. You're going to want to let your painting dry, and once you're finished, you can take a picture or video of your project and share it on our assignment page on Canvas. I can't wait to see your cupcake paintings. Try your best, have fun, and get creative. I'll see you soon. Bye!